and a 3 times world championship commentator. So this should be a fun match between Sierra and Adam.
Yeah, it's always fun to see the commentators step into the battling field, so to speak, and what fun teams as well. Sierra is going to be running a team of Togekiss, Roserade, Garchomp, Gyarados, Rotom Heat, and Porygon 2 against Adam's team of Garchomp, Rotom Wash, Crobat, Scizor, Porygon Z, and Togekiss. What's interesting to me about these teams is that they feature a lot of familiar faces from, the VGC formats that we're used to. But, Roserades, Scizor, those are some Pokemon I haven't seen in a long time.
Yes, a very long time. Also, shout-outs to Sierra. I don't know if it was intentional or not, but I think half of her team is half of Cynthia's championship team with the Togekiss, Roserade, and Garchomp. Of course, Togekiss is now a fairy type, is not normal flying anymore like it was back in the original Diamond and Pearl. But I can see the synergies. They both have Garchomp and then a Rotom form. So I understand the synergy there thanks to Rotom's Levitate. So I think this should be fun. Obviously, Rotom Wash, you would think, would win out against Rotom Heat because of being a water type. But I don't know who has the upper hand necessarily. We're going to have to get into the game to find out.
I think so. At least Adam will get some practice fighting against Cynthia-like teams, right? That's going to come in handy in a few months. But for now, I think let's jump into the battle ahead of us. Looks like Adam is leading Crobat and Porygon Z. Those are some Pokemon I've seen recently, and there is the Togekiss and the Roserade. So I think we're all familiar with what Porygon Z does when it takes to the field. It likes to go for that turn 1 Dynamax. It likes to be fast. It likes to use those crazy powerful max strikes to knock out Pokemon in one hit. But with a Pokemon like Crobat next to it, I can't help but assume that Crobat is going to go for maybe Super Fangs to ensure those max strikes are going to knock out when they connect with a Pokemon. Maybe go for a Tailwind with some speed support. Crobat's one of those Pokemon that was an amazing partner to have back in the day of those VGC tournaments back in the Diamond and Pearl and Platinum era. But it's been a while, and it's great to see it back once again.
Yeah, Crobat is an incredibly fast Pokemon that provides a lot of utility for your team. Like you mentioned, the Tailwind, being able to boost the speed on this Porygon Z, who is going to Dynamax, of course, because when you run Porygon Z, you go for that turn 1 Dynamax like 95% of the time. It's such an effective strategy.
I would say 100% of the time, but I'm that kind of Porygon Z player.
Togekiss will protect, though, on Sierra's end, so no Dynamax this turn. Obviously, we saw Togekiss is a very strong Dynamax option throughout most of Sword and Shield's history here, but the Tailwind from Crobat will double all of the Pokemon's speed on Adam's side, and this max strike is going into Togekiss's Protect there, so a smart Protect out of Sierra, only taking a quarter of the damage it would have without that Protect there. And of course, Porygon Z revealing a Life Orb. Sleep Powder does connect onto Porygon Z, though. 75% accurate move, Roserade putting in work on turn 1. Now Adam's Porygon Z has to stay asleep next turn.
I have to wonder if that Roserade is holding something like a Focus Sash to ensure that it can use Sleep Powder. I guess it is. But if I were in Sierra's shoes, I would be tempted to run something that would make that more accurate. But hey, if you can hit that Sleep Powder, just like we saw, you really can buy plenty of time to deal with the crazy, scary Porygon Z that's very, very powerful.
So Adam's Dynamax is essentially negated this turn. He got the 1 max strike off into a protected Togekiss, but now is going to have to stay asleep this turn at least and potentially try to wake up next turn. Brave Bird out of Crobat will be super effective into the Roserade, brings it down to 1 HP, and that's why you run Focus Sash on the Roserade to ensure that you tank at least 1 hit, because now Roserade's going to have the option to Sleep Powder the Crobat, and it does connect. So 2 Sleep Powders connecting for Sierra here on the 2 opening turns. Roserade already showing off how great of a team member it is, and how strong it is in this Sinnoh Celebration format.
I really like the fact that this Roserade is hitting those sleep powders. I'm kind of jealous. I might ask Sierra her training tips after this game. But now that Porygon 2 is on the field, knowing that Crobat set up Tailwind as well as these Pokemon are still taking a nap, you have to wonder, is it time for Trick Room? Because I would say it's time for Trick Room.
Oh, absolutely, especially since the Roserade took a max strike anyway, so it is slower. But of course, Porygon 2's job is to set up Trick Room. That's a Pokemon, regardless of the region that we are playing VGC in. Porygon 2 is a powerhouse, so of course you would know it is going to be very strong in the Sinnoh region as well, in the Sinnoh Pokedex. So I wonder what Roserade's job is at this point, because it's already put everything to sleep, so you kind of waiting for Porygon Z to wake up from its nap and put it back to sleep again?
I think if I were in Sierra's shoes, I would start focusing on dealing damage, because these Pokemon are very fast, but these Pokemon are also very frail. It's easy to pick up the knockout from an Ice Beam on the Porygon 2 onto the Crobat, just like we saw, and a Leaf Storm, even though it will drop Roserade's special attack by 2 stages, if you bring Porygon Z down to the last of its health, even without a Focus Sash, that is still going to be very huge. So Sierra taking a great lead, using Trick Room perfectly, nailing those sleep powders, and forcing Adam down to his last Pokemon. Seeing the Scizor revealed on his side of the field does give him the option to go for some Technician boosted Bullet Punches, which are going to do a lot of damage. Also will do at least 1 damage to knock out that Roserade if he decides to go for it. So certainly not out, but in a tough battle, probably going to have to find those turns to stall out Trick Room.
Bullet Punch does take down that Roserade, and this Tri-Attack will knock out Porygon Z. Noting, I want to note last turn, Porygon Z did have that 3rd turn of sleep. You would think Adam was really relying on waking up there and trying to get maybe a Hyper Beam off into the Porygon 2, but was not able to do that. So Sierra's Porygon 2 is still at full health in this position. Gyarados switching in for Sierra will allow, if it is Intimidate, which we would assume it is, will allow that Intimidate onto the Scizor, which will hurt its attack, lowering its attack by 1 stage. And then Rotom Wash is the switch in for Adam there. So that's Rotom Wash would be a pretty strong answer against the Gyarados.
Against the Gyarados and against the Togekiss, interestingly enough, Sierra does still have Dynamax available to her, and I would think the Gyarados or the Togekiss would be the perfect candidates for it at this point in time. She needs to be able to knock out that Rotom before it can get a nasty plot or 2 in, so that those Thunderbolts, or possibly even a Thunder, depending on how lucky Adam is feeling right now, would deal enough damage. I guess it would always be Thunderbolt because it is a Rotom Wash, but still, it does need that little extra boost in order to sort of power through the Porygon 2, the Gyarados, and the Togekiss. But Adam does have the right Pokemon in order to have an advantage against Sierra when you're looking at typing. So even though it seems like Sierra has a great lead, if Adam can find a way to get through Trick Room, if he can find a way to boost up that Rotom and get those KOs when he needs them, it could certainly still be his game.
And Gyarados will go for the Dynamax here, so a bit of a later game Dynamax out of Sierra here. Scizor will protect on this turn, hoping that Gyarados targets into that slot instead of the Rotom Wash. Tri-Attack from Porygon 2 into Rotom Wash brings it down to around 60% of its health. And Max Overgrowth out of Gyarados. That is the Power Whip. A lot of people joke that Gyarados is the best grass type in the format, and here we see evidence of it, as thanks to a critical hit, probably knocking out without the critical hit anyway because of how strong Max Overgrowth is, Rotom Wash is taken down there. So that's a big reveal out of Sierra, that she has grass access to Rotom Wash, who typically is a very safe Pokemon if there's no grass type on the other end.
Yeah, so with the combination of the Power Whip and the Roserade on her team, I don't think Adam can really bring Rotom Wash to the next game, even though it would be the perfect Dynamax candidate if he wanted to adjust his strategy and not rely on that Porygon Z. I think Sierra is free to clean up now, but we get to see a couple more damage calcs, which may come into play in Game 2 adjustments.
Hey, I'm always down to see Scissor go for the bullet punches, even if they don't do a lot of damage. This tri-attack doesn't do a lot of damage either, thanks to it being an ineffective hit, but Max Airstream is a neutral attack onto Scizor. Not enough for the knockout, but of course with Trick Room ending this turn, the speed boost will actually be very beneficial for Sierra. She's up 2 Pokemon to 1 anyway, with Scizor down this low in health, so she played this game really well, and I think Adam is going to need to adjust in game 2 for that sleep powder strategy out of the Rosary there. You kind of, if you don't have a Lumberry or something to avoid getting put to sleep, you're going to be in a struggle.
Yeah, so fortunately, there are a couple of options that Adam can consider, but first things first, we do have to end this game. So Sierra secures the knockout with a Max Geyser from that Dynamax Gyarados on to the Scizor. Scizor going for one last bullet punch into that Porygon 2. So Sierra, again, taking game 1. But let's talk about game 2. That Roserade really was, I think, the key disrupting factor for Adam in his game plan, and you have to ask yourself, how do I stop Sleep Powder? While you could rely on something like a Lumberry, which Scizor could be holding, that's a pretty popular item for it back in the day, you also have to wonder if Crobat maybe has some options to try and disrupt the Roserade as well. Certainly a Brave Bird, maybe something like a Taunt. There are plenty of ways that Adam can shut that Sleep Powder down, so we'll just have to see what he chooses to prioritize.
You could also go with the old reliable, Gabby, of hoping Sleep Powder misses too. That's an effective strategy.
It is. And if you were playing me, it would miss 100% of the time.
Absolutely. So let's see what Adam's adjustments are going into game 2 here. Is that Roserade not only got the 2 Sleep Powders, but the very strong Leaf Storm did a lot of work against Porygon Z as well. So there is a change-up on Adam's side for game 2. Rotom Wash and Garchomp is the lead. Sierra going for the same thing of Togekiss and a Roserade. Now remember, a very common strategy back in the day with Rotom and Garchomp. Rotom has Discharge, Garchomp has Earthquake, right? So being a ground type, it's immune to the electric, and being a Levitator, it's immune to the ground. So there could be some synergies there. Of course, you're not going to hit Togekiss, and this isn't the old Sinnoh, so the Togekiss has much better answers against Garchomp now that it is a Fairy type. So this is not a fully safe lead for Adam.
It isn't, but if one of these Pokemon is holding a Lumberry, and if Sierra decides to go for that Sleep Powder again, this could certainly be the opportunity for Adam to get around that huge roadblock from game 1. But I think we're going to see some huge Pokemon first, and no Earthquake Discharge at least. Might be a Max Quake Discharge, or maybe a good old Max Rockfall to try and pick up the KO on that Togekiss right away.
A man after my own heart with this Dynamax Garchomp. The Max Rockfall into Togekiss will be super effective and take it out there. It's going to set up the sand also, so we'll provide a little bit of chip damage each turn onto all the other Pokemon. It will also importantly break Roserade's Focus Sash, so this Leaf Storm is going to knock out Rotom here. It's a one-hit KO, but at the cost of 2 stages of special attack for Roserade, excuse me. Now, if Adam did bring Crobat, he can bring it into this slot and go for that Brave Bird, which we saw. The only reason Roserade survived the Brave Bird last time was because of Focus Sash. Roserade doesn't have that anymore.
It doesn't, but you have to wonder if trading the Rotom Wash for the Togekiss was a beneficial trade for Adam, given how Rotom matches up against the Gyarados, which we did see Sierra does have in the back. You have to look at what's on the field, and if she can find a way to, get through the Dynamax on Garchomp's side of the field, or maybe just knock Garchomp out with Ice Beam, like we saw Porygon 2 hit Crobat with earlier. That Gyarados is going to be a huge threat for Adam. For now, though, Garchomp still is on the field, still does have access to Dynamax, and with the help of Togekiss, will have some redirection around, and both these Pokemon, both the Roserade and the Porygon 2, are not able to hit 2 targets at once, like that Togekiss and the Dazzling Gleam. So even though Sierra might have gotten the better Pokemon trade in terms of knockouts in the previous turn, Adam is in a great position to try and score a second knockout this turn with the help of good old Garchomp from the Sinnoh days.
Yeah, Garchomp obviously, instead of going for a Swords Dance and then a strong attack, thanks to the access of Dynamax, Garchomp's really able to be super strong right off the bat. But with this Gyarados switching into the Roserade slot, that is going to have an Intimidate, which will affect Garchomp. Not able to raise its attack, so it's going to have to stay at -1 for now. This Max Whirlwind into Gyarados will bring it down to about 50%, going to lower the attacks of both the Porygon and Gyarados, only really mattering for the Gyarados there as it's a physical attacker. Togekiss from Adam's side went for the Heat Wave though, so Adam was not predicting a switch out on the Roserade, expected that double target would be enough to knock it out, but Gyarados tanks it and Porygon 2 sets up the Trick Room.
Just like Porygon 2 has done, will continue to do for the formats forever.
For the rest of time.
It really is just so good at setting up Trick Room. In this case, though, setting up Trick Room means that both these Pokemon, both the Gyarados and the Porygon 2, will be faster than the Garchomp. Probably forced to target the Togekiss regardless, you know, even though we saw that Adam is most likely running one of the critical hit variants of Togekiss, most of those still will carry Follow Me for situations just like this. So even though it must be tempting for Sierra to go for that big damage into Adam's Garchomp with something like her Gyarados, I mean her giant Porygon 2, of course, I don't think she's going to get that access this turn.
Porygon 2 Dynamaxing is so terrifying because it's adorable, but it's also gigantic, and it's actually a big threat. You think of Porygon 2 as that defensive powerhouse, but once you have access to the Dynamax attacks, like Max Hailstorm here into Togekiss, it can really cause a lot of trouble. It gets rid of the sand as well, gonna change that to hail, so that will still have some residual damage, but at least this time around the hail is gonna hit Garchomp as well. And Gyarados springing up into the sky with Bounce. Obviously, Gyarados is not Dynamax, so can't go for that. Has to be 2 turns on Bounce. And thankfully, Gyarados actually avoiding the attack there because of Bounce. So really strong turn out of Sierra.
Yeah, and Sierra's showing one of the more, I think, recent adjustments to the playstyle for the VGC metagame in general. Porygon 2 having the download ability can get access to a special attack boost. It didn't happen in this game, but once you do get that special attack boost, Dynamaxing Porygon 2 is an incredible option because of the bulk and because of the offensive pressure it brings. So something that is a little bit more recent than the Sinnoh days, but certainly gets those knockouts just the same.
Togekiss will be taken out from this Max Hailstorm on Porygon 2's end. That's the second turn of Dynamax for Sierra. Bounce is actually going to avoid the Gyarados there. That's a pretty accurate attack. So the fact that it missed is very lucky for Adam. The Gyarados is taken out from the Rock Slide. Does not do too much damage to the Porygon here. So Sierra has one more turn of Dynamax. She currently has Trick Room set up. Roserade is her 4th Pokemon, as we saw earlier. The Focus Sash has been broken, but typically Garchomp is faster than Roserade, so that would mean that under Trick Room, the Roserade would underspeed it, and you can try to go for those Sleep Powders.
Yeah, and unfortunately for Adam, a Bullet Punch from that Scizor is not going to do enough damage, I think, to knock it out before those Sleep Powders do become a threat. So I think what you have to do if you're Adam, I have to assume that one of these Pokemon is carrying Lumberry. They both like to have it, but one of them has to have it. So you just hope that the Roserade targets that Pokemon with the Lumberry, with that Sleep Powder, so then the next turn, after the Roserade's hopefully been knocked out, you can sort of power your way through. Maybe taking a detour to protect 2 turns to stall out the remainder of Dynamax first, you know, just to be safe.
Yep, Max Hailstorm into Garchomp. That is a 4 times super effective attack, so the Garchomp is down to half of its HP. Sleep Powder did go into the Scizor slot, so Adam now sees what Sierra's strategy was. She thought it was more important to put the Scizor to sleep as that can hit the Roserade back. And of course, while Trick Room is still up for, I believe, 1 final turn, Adam did just double protect, so now he's gonna have to try to maybe get a protect again out of Garchomp, which is only a 30% chance, because Porygon 2 is faster under Trick Room.
It is, and that Ice Beam will do enough damage on its own at this point to secure that knockout. So Caesar really going to have to dig deep to find a way to power through these last 2 remaining Pokemon. Hitting a Pokemon twice, though, with a super effective move, certainly a great way to start.
Dual Wing Beat, a new addition in Sword and Shield that Scizor has access to. Trick Room actually helping it out a little bit there, as it was the slowest thing on the field. Ice Beam from Porygon 2 will take out this Garchomp. So Garchomp not able to really do too much damage in this game, and now it is down to the Scizor and the Porygon 2 as the Twisted Dimensions return to normal. So this is the type of action I love seeing, Gabby. We're here 1-1.
1-1, Scizor versus Porygon 2. I know what Porygon 2 is going to do for the remainder of this game. You know, Sierra is going to weave in those recovers alongside Tri-Attack, I believe, to try and score a burn on Scizor to weaken its attack power to start building up that residual damage. The big question on my mind is, what moves does Scizor have? We've seen Bullet Punch, we've seen Dual Wing Beat, we've seen Protect. If Scizor has access to a fighting type move, that is going to be so critical. The timing's going to be rough. It's not going to knock out that Porygon 2 in one hit. But if you can time it right and connect that, we'll have ourselves a game 3. This game certainly is not over yet.
Yep, that Dual Wing Beat goes into the Porygon, and it seems like it's doing less damage than Porygon is recovering each turn, so that is a net positive for Sierra. Tri-Attack is ineffective onto Scizor, does not land any status conditions, and the fact that Adam continues to go for Dual Wing Beat here instead of Bullet Punch, or even if it had a Swords Dance, makes me assume that this Scizor is holding Choice Band, because at this point you could just Swords Dance up a bunch of times and then go for very strong Technician boosted Bullet Punches, but because it keeps going for Dual Wing Beat, I think it's Choice Locked.
It's tough to say. We did see that Scizor go for a Protect earlier on in this game, so I'm not sure if it's Choice Lock. This might just be its best option.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, so is Dual Wing Beat doing more than Bullet Punch because of the double hits?
I think it is, and also because of the double hits, that's 2 opportunities to score a critical hit, and that extra damage would certainly be beneficial, given how comfortably Porygon 2 is just recovering right up.
Sierra's very, putting herself in a position. She understood she traded her Togekiss for Rotom Wash, who would have been a big struggle against the rest of her team. I think Sierra's played this whole game really well, utilizing all of her turns of Trick Room exceptionally well, breaking through the Togekiss Follow Me and everything, getting it down to this position where if you can land a status condition like a burn right there, that can seal the game for you. And here is the Dual Wing Beat doing significantly less damage thanks to the burn, and that reveals, Gabby, that the Scizor is not holding a Lumberry.
It isn't, so I guess we'll have to wonder what item that is another day. That burn was exactly what Sierra was looking for.